2010-11 school year, we had 42 due process requests filed. As you can see, there were non-district filings. Some of those include cross filings and 34 parent filings. Most of the cases had multiple issues, but I broke them out into what the main issues, as you can see here. 37 of the cases were resolved during the 2010-11 school year. I've broken down when and how those were resolved. 7 were withdrawn, 10 were resolved in resolution, 5 in mediation, 15 in mediation, 4 post-mediation prior to hearing, and we only had 1 hearing. It's a slight increase from last year.
So, 42 and 9 and 34. Is there one difference in funds or?
Oh, yes. The 1 hearing case actually was a remand down, and so I didn't include that in one of the numbers.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Right, so there's an extra one in one of the places.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good work there. Number 6, educationally related mental health services.
Probably as now all of you have realized that now school districts have the sole responsibility for providing mental health services for students who are eligible under IDEA. And well, in the West End SELPA, we have always had a very strong counseling program, in part due to, I think, the foresight of superintendents that preceded you in establishing this, but also in part because our Department of Behavioral Health was not very proactive in providing services. And so districts here have really taken up the slack there and had to provide services that otherwise would have come out of the AB 3632 program. As an additional responsibility, however, we will have to take on residential assessments, placement, and monitoring. So this is actually a new program that we will need to really look at. In a lot of ways, I think this gives us an opportunity to really look at what our needs are. All of the regulations related to Chapter 26.5 have been rescinded, so it kind of opens the door for us to take a good look at what might be possible in some of the areas that we feel would really meet the needs of our students. With our program people, we went over a process to kind of take a look at those services and looking at what works for us. And basically there were 3 particular areas they focused on. One was having a counselor that was known to the school and who worked closely together with the school team, IEP team. Secondly was having counseling services that were provided at the school site. And thirdly, they identified having high-quality staff as something that really worked. In terms of the needs they saw, they felt they needed more options for services. Areas that were identified were family services as well as group therapy, options for more intensive services, and also options for 2-tier supports. And if you've looked at the last page of this item, we developed a pyramid or continuum of services similar to the RTI model, and there was certainly a need at the Tier 2 level to really further develop our services so that we could serve students in the least restrictive environment. At this time, the districts are being asked to review all of their existing IEPs that have counseling services on them, because when we made this transition last January, we did offer services to all of our students who received DBH services, but not all of the parents chose to move to an educational provider. Some of these families get multiple services that are outside the ABU program, and so it makes sense for them to stay with Department of Behavioral Health. However, at this time, we need to relook at that and make sure we have made an offer of faith that does meet our requirements, and we're working with the districts to document if the parent declines those services because they were choosing to stay with another provider. We've also revised our referral process, and now all of the referrals will come into the clinical counselors. 3 people are serving as a review team, and they will assign all of the referrals out. In the past, referrals were received, and some of them were redirected to Department of Behavioral Health. Others were returned to district as not being appropriate. We have instituted a process where all of the referrals will be assessed by the counselors to determine the need. And so they are working on that process, and we pretty much have most of that nailed down. Then, while pre-referral activities were required under the AB program, since all of the requirements under that program have disappeared, those also were rescinded. And so we talked some at PAC about this, and program people still felt there is a need to really look at maintaining services in the least restrictive environment. So we had some volunteers from program who will look at a plan for really developing that continuum and looking at where we can increase our services. So if you have any suggestions or needs, or have any staff that perhaps work in other departments that would be interested in working with special education, we would welcome their expertise as we move forward in looking at really getting a robust array of services in place.
I have one on the tier chart. There's several services that are blank.
Right, and that's where we don't have a specific provider, and so that was the areas where,
So it could be either the Southport district.
right,
Okay.
right. We do have some anger management groups that, well, they started out as anger management groups that we run for a couple of classes at Chafee, but they've kind of become more general in their focus. But, it's certainly not sample-wide.
Any further questions? Thank you. Limited public